Hi, I'm Tricia at Club Scrap. This is the Hot Summer Card Kit Workshop. Welcome. And if it's your first time, I want to give you a special welcome. This is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to take all of the stuff you see here and turn it into a dozen fabulous cards. We're going to start by simply setting aside all of the ribbon, the envelopes, and the embellishments that came with your kit and get that paper sorted into the order that we'll be trimming it and scoring it and so on. So let's take that whole stack of paper and place it upright. And now let's find one sheet of this orange and then one sheet of the teal, then a yellow. I think it's gonna end up being one sheet of each color, and then red. Now all four of these beautiful colors are trimmed the same way. Then we're gonna do that again. So find another orange, find another teal, one more yellow, and one more red. All four of those are trimmed the exact same way. It's kind of involved, so I'll be here to help you through the process. Then we have these two prints. Let's put those face down. And then finally, with the Cutaparts that we have left, let's take the one that says, "Here comes the sun, happy birthday." That'll be first, face down, and then the other one with that checked border on the edge, that'll be the last piece we trim. And we're gonna flip everything back over so the orange is on top. And we'll go to page 1 of our instructions. Now, if you haven't printed these yet, you don't necessarily need to. You can just follow along with me, or if you want to keep this with your cards, that's fine as well. You'll need to print it. Now, I'm using an accordion pocket file to stay organized. So if you don't have one of these, don't let that stop you from doing this. Make sure you just have enough space to have 3 piles, one for each set of cards that we're making, and then another pile for scraps that have potential that, you know, they could be possibly be used. Now, the front of this accordion pocket file goes under the trimmer base. Speaking of, you're going to want to get this trimmer as well if you don't already have it. It's a wonderful tool. A lot of people say they already have so many trimmers. I do too. This is the one I always use. Now I'm going to take this orange paper. Before we trim it, we need to make sure we're working with the grain direction of the paper. So I'll hold it by the center of one edge and wiggle the paper a little bit. Study how easily it wiggles. And then I'm going to rotate and check on the other center edge. This is to me, very stiff. This is more willing to fall, to droop. So make sure that the paper will droop easily from the front to the back of the trimmer. And I'm going to repeat that for the teal. Very stiff this way, nice and loose this way. So that's how it goes into the trimmer. If you're wondering what I mean by that too, there's an arrow on the instructions that shows which way the paper should dip most easily before you cut, if that matters. If it doesn't matter, there will be no arrow on the diagram. Okay, let's do a lot of trimming now. We're going to start at 8 3/4. Those of you who are new to the trimmer, maybe you want to use one sheet only. To find 8 3/4, I go for the whole number, 8 inches. Make sure you're not looking at centimeters over here, but you're at inches. And then for every quarter, go to the left one vertical column. So that's 8, 8 1/4, 8 1/2, 8 3/4. After we make sure it's level up here, we'll hold down on the clear bar. Especially important if you're working with 2 sheets of paper at a time. Once this falls down off the edge of the blade, leave it lay where it lands. And then we're going to slide down to 4 1/2. Skip 4 and then 1/2, 4 1/2. And we'll rotate the 4 1/2 and we'll cut at 11 3/4. And 10. Now these 2 pieces end up being card bases, so I'm going to set them aside on my score pal to be scored a little bit later. And then you have this rectangle. We're going to trim it, believe it or not, several times. So our first cut will be at 3 3/4, then 2 1/2, and 1 1/4. Those are some little cuts, I know, but bear with me, it'll be worth it. Okay, let's gather up these little rectangles we made, 3 sets, okay? They're all the same size. Those are gonna go in pocket B. Then you have these tiny little rectangles and the narrow strips. Those are scraps, and they're pretty small. I'm just gonna get rid of those completely. I'll pick up the next strip. This is currently 4 1/4 by 12. Let's trim this at 10 1/2. And now this larger piece again becomes card bases, so I'll put that on my score pal, and then this strip goes in pocket C. The next skinnier strip, the final one, we're going to trim in kind of an odd place. We're going to go all the way down to 3 3/4. We don't normally do this, but it works best. 3 3/4, and then rotate this piece vertically and trim it 2 3/4. This goes in pocket B, and we have some tiny little scraps here, and then this goes in pocket C. It's going to be a panel. We get to review that. Do it twice. So now let's take the yellow. I'm checking the grain direction, making sure it dips and curves easily from the top to the bottom of the trimmer. And then I repeat that with the red. Same deal. Okay, review. First cut, 8 3/4. And if you want to slow me down, you can do that by adjusting your playback speed on YouTube to 0.75 if you like. So again, that's 8 3/4. Always remember to stabilize before you slice. And then 4 1/2. So 4 1/2. There we go. Rotate and trim at 11 3/4 and 10. Nice easy number there. Again, 2 more card bases to be scored. And this rectangle gets trimmed at all those weird measurements. So 3 3/4, 2 1/2, and even here, just take your finger and push down on that clear bar. And then 1 1/4, even more important, 1 1/4. Okay, so then you've got 3 sets of rectangles that are the same. Those join their friends in pocket B. And then you have some little scraps joining their friends in the circular file. Okay, this next strip, we're going to trim at 10 1/2. There's 2 more card bases and a strip. Both of these go in pocket C. And then this long strip here, 3 3/4. So I know that the majority of the paper is winging out to the right here. Just make sure it's very level at the top and rotate and cut it 2 3/4. So this piece goes in pocket B. Got some scraps that fell. And a panel for pocket C. Okay, now we're moving on to the next set. So these 4 papers were trimmed in step 1, then we got 4 more papers trimming in step 2, and look at the arrow. It's pointing the opposite direction from left to right, whereas this was top to bottom. So let's check our grain on the orange here. Very stiff. I want the paper to dip easily from left to right. And then we're gonna do that with the teal. Oh, that gotta go that way, left to right. We have, again, a lot of trimming to do, so just take it with me step by step. The first cut is at 7. Nice whole number there for you. Now we're going to rotate and trim at 11 1/2 and 8 1/2. Here we got 2 more card bases. Set those aside to be scored. Then this piece we're going to trim at 6 1/2. 6 1/2. All right, that goes in pocket C. And we created some tiny scraps. Those you can dispose of, but these long ones, I ended up using them in set C. All right, now we have this big piece. We're gonna make we're gonna turn this into all kinds of magic here. So let's see. We're gonna start out at 10 3/4, 9 1/2, 6 3/4, 3 3/4. All right, so this great big piece, the biggest one you ended with, that goes in pocket A. Then you have this other pair of rectangles that needs to be scored. I know it's only a 3 by 5, but go ahead and set that aside with your card bases to be scored. This next one, we're going to trim horizontally at 4 and 3. Take this rectangle and put it in pocket A. And then we have also created 2 pairs of strips. They should be the same size. One of them goes in pocket A, and the other set is a scrap. Now we have 2 sets of these really narrow strips. They actually get trimmed again, believe it or not. Our first cut on this is at 3.5, and then 1 3/4. Can you believe it? I know, it's a little crazy. So I've got these 2 sets that are the same and another one that's a little smaller. The 2 that are the same will join their friends in pocket B, and this is a scrap, and we're going to repeat that for the other strip. So again, that's 3.5, bear with me here, and 1 3/4. See again how I'm using my index finger just to push down. The 2 the same go in B, and the scrap goes in the scrap pile. We get to practice that one more time. So this time again, we're gonna make sure the paper folds easily from left to right. And we'll trim at 7 so we can start out nice and easy. Then rotate, we're gonna go 11.5 and 8.5. All right, card bases, set those aside. We're gonna give this a little haircut here and trim at 6.5. Place this into pocket C, and then you have the really little ones, that's a scrap, and you have the longer ones, I'm using them in C. Now we get to do just a little more sort of labor-intensive trimming, but then after this, it's gonna get easier. So our first cut now, again, is 10 3/4, 9.5, and 6 3/4. That's 6 3/4, and 3 3/4. Okay, this one, pocket A. The next pair, this is a 3x5, needs to be scored. Then this next pair, we're going to trim at 4 and 3. So 4 and 3. The rectangle, pocket A. Then remember you have 2 strips the same. One set is a scrap and the other pocket A. Here we are now with the 2 narrow strips, the last of this really kind of detailed work here. Our first cut's at 3.5. And then 1 3/4. Go ahead and repeat for the other one, 3.5. 1 3/4. All right, now we gather. So you've got these sets that are the same. Let's identify. These are all the same. Those go in pocket B, and the shorties are scraps. Wow, we got a healthy little pile of scraps here. You could probably make something out of those. I'm not sure, but I mean, it's not bad for a dozen cards out of 12 sheets of paper. Okay, I think it's maybe even 10 sheets this month, which is amazing. Okay, now with a print. You can put this print into the trimmer any way you like. So I have the prints shown on here to be added this way. I'm just gonna be a little rebel and do it the other way. Because this paper does not get folded, it does not matter how it gets placed into the trimmer. So let's cut at 10 3/4, 9.5, and by the way, this is just one sheet of this print. 9.5, 8, and 4. Then I'm going to take the 2 4-inch pieces, the one that was in your trimmer and the one right next to it, and let's make a bunch of cuts. We'll start at 11, 10, 8 1/4, 6 1/2, and 3 1/4. So now we have all these panels. We got these that are all the same, the medium that are all the same, and the small that are all the same. You can stack them all together, and they're all going to go in pocket A. Now we've got 3 pieces. They're different widths, so maybe take the 2 that are the same width, and you can cut them at the same time at 8 1/4. The strips and the ends, they all go in pocket C. And then this last piece as well, you can trim at 8 1/4. And they all also go in pocket C. Now this next one, I've got it. I'm going to just do, again, something different with this and see what happens. I'm curious. Different from what I did when I initially made the samples. So our first cut is at 10 1/4. Then 7. And 3 3/4. Take this piece and rotate it. We'll cut at 11, 8 1/4, 5 1/2, 2 3/4. Okay, so you can gather, you made 4 pieces that are the same size. They go in pocket B, and this is a scrap. The next 2 pieces should be the same width. We're going to trim them the same at the same time. We'll cut at 9 and 4 1/2. All of these go in pocket A. And we have some scraps. Now you can put those in the D pocket just in case you want to use them for something. You can hang on to them, they're a little larger. Then this final piece will trim at 8 1/4. And both of these pieces go in pocket C. Wonderful job. I know that was a lot of trimming. We get to do just a little bit more with these Cutaparts. So for my newbies here, the rest of you get to work. You see that little plus sign there? Anything beyond the edge of those marks has to be removed. Like the mark itself should be removed as well. The goal is to make this a 12 by 12 all the way around. Right now it's about 12 1/8 or 12 1/4 by 12 1/4. So when I make my first cut to remove that, I'm going to go a little generous. So if you look way in the corner here, I'm going to trim a little shy of where that line is. I can go back and really clean that up in a minute. Then I'll rotate, and this time I can probably see more clearly at the top and the bottom. I know you can't see the bottom down here, but when I'm looking here, I can look at the edge of the blade and make sure this line and that line are both lined up with the blade. And if it seems like, a little bit more could come off of that, just go ahead and do it. You can take off a little tiny hair, which is pretty phenomenal when you consider the trimmer. Okay, so now I'm going to rotate and line up again on the right, but if I look at the left, I'm going to be closer to 12 here. Rotate again. This time I should be at, if I go 12, I should be pretty close to that line, and then finally my last cut here, I'm looking for 12. And I've got a series of narrow strips that I'm going to throw away. Okay, leaving the paper in the trimmer so that the plane, or the jet, is in the upper left, and our first cut will be at 10. Now if you look at the artwork, you're going to notice the blade will split the difference between these 2 pieces of art. Now the piece that just fell, leave it where it lands. We'll file it together in a minute, and we'll move down to 6 1/4, and then finally 4 1/4. Now rotate the 4 1/4 by 12, and we'll cut at 9, 6, and 3. Gather up the pieces that landed. They're all the same size, and they go in pocket A. Now we move on to this other strip. It's the same cuts as before, 9, 6, and 3. So 9, 6, 3. Gather all these up, and they're going to go in pocket B. Pick up the next strip. We're going to start at 9 again, but this time we go to 6 3/4, 4 1/2, 2 1/4. So there's going to be 4 pieces the same, B, all of those. And then this oddball goes in C. The next strip, we just cut it in half at 6. And both strips go in pocket C. And now we've arrived at another Cutapart. So I'm going to do the same thing. Remove just shy of the line here, and then rotate, line up the cutting guides best I can, and remove. Work your way around the whole piece until it's that nice, perfect 12 by 12 we're looking for. And then you can get rid of all your little scraps And make sure it's back into the trimmer with this checkered border on the right. And we'll cut at 11.5. Slide down to 9. And 6 1/4. And 3.5. Give it a rotation. Our first cut's at 10. And 7.5. 5. 2.5. Several of these are the same, 4 of them, and then there's one shorter one. So the sames go in B, and the shorty goes in C. If you would like, you can just trim the next 2 pieces at the same time. They're all even numbers. So our first cut is at 10, then 8, 6, 4, and 2. All of these rectangles are used in card set C. Then with the Enjoy on the right, we'll go at 11, 8 1/4, 5 1/2, 2 3/4. You end up with 4 squares the same, all going in pocket A, and Enjoy C. I did not use this strip. I'm sure you could. Let's put it in C. Let's cut it to 8 1/2 actually. We're going to be spontaneous. That's why we watched the video. 8 1/2. And let's pop this in pocket C. We'll find a home for him very easily. And I won't let this be a scrap. So again, not bad for your scrap pile. If you want to try to make something with that, you know, send me your ideas. It's fine. Okay, now we have some scoring to do. So I'm going to lock my trimmer blade, support my accordion pocket file, and remove my trimmer. And then lay this on its side because the trimmer is what holds it up. And let's grab your score pal. And on mine, everything is still stacked the way it landed when we sorted it. So I think that's the best way to tackle that pile. And then I'm going to turn back. I have to look back at these 2 diagrams to find my scoring measurements. So now I'll start at the top. I've got these narrow strips and they get scored at 3 1/4 and 4 1/2. Repeat that for the other one, 3 1/4 and 4 1/2. And then if you just dig a little ways, you're going to find 2 more. Let's do those right away. 3 1/4, 4 1/2, and 3 1/4, 4 1/2. These scored pieces are used in set A. So you can go ahead and file those. And now we have these larger pieces. These are the slimline card bases. When you put them in your score pile, make sure the 7 is here and the 8 1/2 is down here. And we'll score at 3 1/2. Again, 3 1/2 on this one. And you should have 2 more. The teal, 3 1/2. And 3 1/2. All of these are used in set C, so I'll put those in that pocket with the other goods. There's a lot in there, a lot in all these pockets. Okay, now we have to be careful because there are sets of different sizes. Let's put them in the same pile, okay? So we have the ones that are longer and the ones that are shorter. Short ones are wider and so on, the long ones, all kinds of stuff going on. Let's grab the card bases that are longer. So if you put them in the corner, you'll see 4 1/4 by 10 1/2. Let's score these first, the long ones. So when you place it in the score pile, you should see 10 1/2 down here. Our numbers are 5 1/2, 6 3/4, 8 3/4, and 10. Again, 5 1/2, 6 3/4, 8 3/4, 10. We get to review that 2 more times. 5 1/2, 6 3/4, 8 3/4, 10. Last time, 5 1/2, 6 3/4, 8 3/4, 10. All of these pieces are the basis for set A. So I'll put those in the pocket so they're out of the way. And finally, this time we're going to score this. This is the 4.5 by 10. This is going to make that really cool step-up card. So we scored horizontally at 2 and 6. Next, I want you to take the card base and rotate it or flip it. So from the bottom to the top, it gets flipped. So right now, these lines that you made just a second ago are bumps, and we're going to score at 4 and 8. Okay. Next, let's rotate the card so it's vertical, and we'll score at 1.5 and 3. That's a lot of scoring, but it's really a cool trick. All right, so horizontally, 2 and 6, flip bottom to top, 4 and 8. So that's pretty easy. Then just rotate and go 1.5 and 3. Repeat 2 more times. You get a lot of practice on this scoring. 2 and 6, flip bottom up, goes up to the top. 4 and 8, rotate, 1.5 and 3. Last time, 2 and 6, flip bottom to top, 4 and 8, rotate, 1.5 and 3. Fun stuff. These are the card bases for set B, so I'll put those in that pocket, and we'll get rid of our score pal. We're ready to make card set A together. I think we'll start by just folding the card bases in half on that central score line here. Make sure the bump of the score line is on the inside of the fold, just so that we can create some space for ourselves here. So again, I'm just gonna, there's a lot of scores on here, but just fold on that main one, the first large scored area. And I'll burnish that so we can deal out the rest of these multiple pieces. So I think the order that I have the cards pictured in the instructions on page 3 is how we'll do it. In this case, our first card will be yellow, and then orange, teal, and red. So those would be the card bases. There is so much here. You might find it helpful to kind of sort things out a little bit by size so that you can deal things out in a clear and concise way. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Well, it's a lot of stuff, but again, all the trimming is done now, so it is kind of cool that it's like that. Now, each one of these cards on the back has a, we'll start with that larger panel that goes in the back. So I'm going to grab the teal and put it on the yellow, and then the red on the orange, the yellow, and the orange here. And then there's going to be a printed panel that should nest right onto that. Now, again, this is for the back of these cards, so you can be looking at color and see, you know, however your trimming of the print turned out, which one you most want to see on that card base. And then a lot of it's going to be covered, though, because on the yellow one, that's going to turn into a thinking of you. Same for this one. And then a congratulations and happy birthday. All right, so that's the back, basically, of each card. Now we're going to go with these panels. Each of these cards will get a larger panel, and again, you can study the color for your favorite, you know, ombre tone, and then they get a medium. So again, I'm going to distribute color, and then you get, each one gets a little narrow one. I like how this is coming out. Okay, now the scored one that we did earlier will go red, yellow, orange, and teal. Another panel, we're going to go orange. Now we get to incorporate all the colors from this beautiful hot summer set onto each card, which I love. Then sunny days ahead, go on the first two. The bravest thing you can be is yourself, and girls just want to have sun. Finally, one last little strip. So we haven't seen much of the teal on the front of this one, and then we'll go red, yellow, and orange. So those are all the pieces distributed to each card. What you could do at this point is stack up the cards 2, 3, and 4 and put them all into an envelope, or put them into individual envelopes because there are so many pieces, and assemble those later. We're going to tackle this first one together now. All the rest of the cards go together the same exact way. So I've got my cutting mat here so you can see a little bit better. And we're going to begin by folding on the remaining score lines of the card base. So just crease on every single one of those with your bone folder. And now we need to create the basic structure of the card. To review, our card looks kind of like this when it's fully assembled. So somehow we've got to get that little tab against the back wall of the card so it's in the right spot. I do like to use my needle tip glue applicator for this. It gives me a little bit of flexibility, but if you just kind of temporarily place this where we think it needs to go, but we want it to be kind of precise. So that little tab, if I were to flatten this card, would mean that once I apply glue to this, all I have to do is fold again on the second nearest fold here, and that's going to place that where it belongs. So here we go. I'm going to apply glue to the little flap. And so here's that first fold. This is the second fold here, or second score line rather. Fold up on that and press the glued tab to the back of the card right here. So now you know this is perfectly flat, right? Just give it a second. Now if I bring this back up, notice that it fell in the perfect spot to make this delightful little rectangle here. And then when the card mails, it'll be folded flat this way. I just think it's a little easier when you're gluing to do it this way. And now I've made my perfect shape. Now at this point, we have a printed panel that will fit here, here, and here. Easiest thing would be to find these 3 printed panels that are graduating in size, put them all on your work surface, and add your glue or your whatever adhesive you're using. I do love my little ATG. It really helps speed things along. And it's very reasonable. Center this into this area here. Then we've got the skinny one. So I'll center that. And then we have the medium-sized one, fits right in there. Isn't that great? Now you've got a nice decorated double thickness here on the card. I've got these other panels for the back of the card, so I'm going to go ahead and do that too. So all I need to do here is lay them in a row because each one will be adhered to the card. Now if you're going to add ribbon or something like that to these panels, you'll want to be cognizant of that. So now this is the back of my card. So I will center this one, and then the print. Oh, that looks so nice. Make sure that the bottom of the card corresponds with the direction of this panel. Very good. There's our back of our card. Now go back to the front. We still have all these pieces left to deal with. The first one, we're going to fold on the score lines that we made to bury the bumps. And we again need to apply glue to that little flap, just like we did on this other one, and attach this at the right spot on the card. Now I have an easy way for you to do that. Once you apply glue to this flap, you will fold on that first score line and add it to the card so that the edge of that fold lands with the edge of the panel, the printed panel here in the center of the card. Let's do this. So again, I'm going to apply the glue to that little flap. Just so you can see. I hope I'm not using too many words that I'm confusing you. And now I've got it folded here like that. Then with your card flat, you can center this fold against the edge of the printed panel. Now your tab is going to land somewhere in the middle of the back wall of this card, which is the intent. You have a little bit of wiggle room if you want to lift this up and kind of press down. Now we have it right where it needs to be. The next thing you can do is open this, and I'm going to apply glue to this side of this wing here. Not too much. And then close this onto the card so that everything opens up perfectly. It creates the other box shape. Cool, right? Love that. Okay, all that's left at this point is attaching the remaining panels. So again, I like to do my gluing in batches. And if I'm making 4 of these cards exactly the same way, sometimes I have it all spread out. But usually with this many panels, I kind of stick to one card. So I can put this one right within that scored area. And then the nesting panel, sunny days are ahead, sunny days ahead. Centers perfectly. And then you have this last piece that goes right there. For the final step, you've got 2 full yards of this gorgeous ombre ribbon. So I'm going to make a basic bow, which is just make some ears, crisscross the ears so that the right goes to the front. Now take the one that's in the front right now and bring it around back and through the loop that you just made. Pull it out on both ends. So for card makers, I think that this style of bow is just, I don't know, relatively flat as far as the knot because of the way you've kind of arranged the crisscrossing ribbons. It makes a pretty nice subtle bow. I think it can go through the mail no problem. So I'll trim my ends at a nice angle. I've got some glue lines here. This is a continuous line. I kind of like the 1-inch ones, but this is what I have left right now. I have to restock. So you can take that glue line and you can either put it directly on the ribbon or on the paper. And then after you've burnished, peel away that backing. And then this is kind of where I planted this, right beneath the sentiment. Very nice. Simple. In the end, it looks complicated and it lays nice and flat for mailing. And then when you put it on display, it sits on its edge like so, stands straight up. Really, really cool. You can do it this way too if you want, as far as orientation. You would just have to switch the direction of the text. So basically this is the card we made together, and yeah, very simple. The second sample with the orange, same exact thing. I did make a linked ribbon on the back of this one because I had a little bit more white space than I had on the other. We've got a small little teal taffeta bow on this one, and I attached all of these with foam adhesive circles. There's the linked ribbon, and then this one had none because there's just a lot of nice graphics here on the back of this card. So go ahead and take the rest of all of this set it aside, and we're going to tackle set B together. Now the first thing you'll notice about everything in the B pocket is that there's a lot. There's just a lot of stuff in these pockets. So don't worry. We'll get it all sorted out, one card at a time. And I think, again, most of this stuff is in pretty good order. The main thing is that we have all of these little rectangles. Look at them all. Now, do we have to use the rectangles? No. It's just that I was able to sort it all out, that we could get them all made and get them to fit on this really cool card. Let me take a second and show you where we're headed. Here's one of the cards. So it's kind of like a stair-step card. Now don't let this scare you. I've got a really simple way to make it. And then you can see that I've been able to distribute all of these fun panels to every single card. It's super cool. All right, let's distribute all of the card bases first. I'm gonna have you begin with the teal and then the yellow. Let's center that up a little bit. Followed by the orange and then red. The next largest panels, we've got some prints and some plains. So let's distribute a print to the lower left corner of every card. They don't end up that. You can put them anywhere you want, but that's kind of where it ends up. And I think if we lay it out this way, it's going to be the easiest to figure out what happens next. Then in the upper, do you see how this fits right into that quadrant right there? We're going to do orange, red, and of course you can swap out any colors you like. Yellow and teal. Next, I'm going to have you take these little mini envelopes that came in your kit, and you're going to go one in on top of the print in the lower left quadrant of every card. Next, let's distribute our sentiments. So we've got nothing but blue skies ahead, nothing but blue skies ahead, keep them coming, and keep them coming. Then on this one, we're going to go the happy feeling when being in the sun, and or have you had a lot of birthdays? And then sun believable on both of the top cards, and is it just me? Okay. Next, we're going to distribute our little pile of prints. Now these colors are all out of order, so I'm just going to try to find my 3 of the yellow. So yellow, yellow in the middle, and yellow on the far right. Next, in the next column, you've got orange, orange on the bottom, and then you have red. Do you see I'm incorporating all the colors here and red? So that's a teal base, but all 4 colors plus the white and the print are represented. Now in this next one, we're going to go teal in the top, teal in the middle, teal lower right. Next to the teal, we'll go red. And then below the teal is also red. Next to the red, orange and orange. It looks like a big puzzle. Like when I look down from the camera, I'm like, wow, this is insane. But I really hope that it's falling together quite easily if you're just following along with me this way. So red, and then if you're seeing a pattern, there is one, red in the lower right quadrant here, and then yellow next to it, yellow below, teal, and teal. It gets easier the fewer pieces we have. Now the orange is the main character. We're going to repeat the 3 orange, then a teal, and the yellow. Ta-da! There they all are. Okay, now what I'm going to do here is just do some stacking. And so we can just focus on doing one card together. I'm going to set these aside. I'm going to set aside all of the pieces, and so that we're back to square one here, no pun intended, with this card base. Now, when we did our scoring, I had you flip, and that's so that we can actually fold this into an accordion style fold. So this right here is a bump. I'm going to bury it inside my fold. Then I have a divot and the bumps on the other side. So I'm going to bury it that way, and then you can just fan fold it, and it makes a really nice accordion, okay? You can open that back up again. If it's helpful to you, I have a diagram on page 4 of your instructions, but we need to do some cutting, and I'm going to use a scissors with a long blade to help with that. We have 2 things we need to cut, and basically we need to trim from the second column score line to the 4th on the top row, and then from the second column here on the other row, we have these 2 little slits. Now you would think, oh no, I don't want to use a craft knife in cutting that, and you don't have to. So what I'm going to do is to cut this line, I'm going to fold on it. This is it from here to here. Come in with my scissors and just make that cut. So then when I open it, that cut is right where I need it to be. Now my other cut needs to be from here to here. So if I just fold it, I can cut through both layers at the same time. It's just making a pop-up is really all you're doing. Perfect. So now I have my cut here, and I have my cut here. Now watch carefully to make the card pop up. I'm going to take this section, I'm going to bend it backwards while bringing this, do you see the stairs? 1, 2, 3, I want those to go forward. And then this flattens in. So you basically created a pop-up. If I just flatten this all out now on the score lines, assembly is going to be a piece of cake. So again, let me just show you how that worked. This one went back, and this one went forward. And here we are. So I'm going to take this whole set of stuff. This is the print, and I'm going to adhere this to the lower left quadrant. You're covering up the score line so it doesn't bend anymore. And then I can take my envelope. I'm going to put adhesive across the middle of the back of it and center it onto the print. Now this piece is all set to go with some ribbon. So if I take a piece of this pretty checked ribbon and cut a little 2-inch piece that I fold in half. Jacqueline designed it so there's this cute little indentation in the border. And then I can take either a mini or a regular stapler, and I can staple the ribbon to that spot and insert it into the pocket. Isn't that clever? On top of that, we're going to put our Sunbelievable, and that is designed to center onto this perfectly. In the upper right quadrant, super easy. I just need to nest the orange and the sentiment. So the orange goes in this set of 4 squares, never to be bent again, and that layers on top. All that's left to do here is I can put adhesive on all these little pieces, all of them. That'll save a lot of time. And you can consult the image in your instructions as well for what color goes where. Either way, they all have adhesive now, so I'm going to add my yellow, the orange, the red, the yellow, the orange. You can see there's a little color pattern here, right? The red, and ending with yellow. Boop, boop. That makes me so happy. I feel like it would be helpful to just make one more card base with those cuts, so I'm going to get rid of all these pieces on the next yellow card. And remember, we accordion folded. And so now, if necessary, flip the card over to find your first mountain fold. So the first one should be a valley, then you've got a mountain. I'm going to cut from here to here while folded. And again, I use a long bladed scissors so I don't have to make as many jags to my cuts. Then if you just flip it over, I got to make a cut from here to here in this first mountain fold. So and now my cuts match what was in my sketch. And now I can push this back. This comes forward like that, and you've got your base. Oh, and before I go, I just want to point out that my last little embellishment involved using some bookbinding glue to attach a series of the square embossed sequins on this. So again, I just put my glue down in 5 little dots, and then I took tweezers to just place the sequins, and then make sure that's the very last thing you do before you set everything aside to dry. We have arrived at our final set of cards. Yay. You're probably like, oh my gosh, Tricia, stop with all the complicated cards. You know, I was under the weather when I was designing these cards, and I was really proud that I came up with that whole stair-step style. I was really just so excited. I couldn't wait to show everyone when I got back to the office how things went. And I did a lot of it on my graph paper before I ever made it my sample. As you can see here, I'm folding these cards in half by burying the bump. That makes the base for our slimline card structures. And especially with a fold this long, it's really nice that we have thought ahead to plan for the grain direction. Okay, 4 cards here. They're all going to be horizontal. So I'll start with teal, and then we'll distribute the orange, the red, and the yellow. Let's see if we can get these all in screen. I think we can just fine. Now I have this other little mess. Just tons and tons of things. I'm going to begin with these larger panels. Let's get those distributed here. So the first one will be orange, and then yellow, nice big teal, and then the red. Next we have these sort of medium-sized plain panels. We'll go yellow. Again, I like to distribute all the colors, red, orange, and teal. Now you'll have a strip. Now with these strips, I didn't really, they're all kind of different widths, so don't worry, just some are wider than others, and that's just because it was pointless to have a scrap, so I just left the strip the size it was, and they're all a little different. Then to get that final 4th color into the mix, I kept these strips. So the teal is missing, so I'm going to add it. Yellow is missing, and orange is missing from this one. So I just added that narrow little strip to the front of the card. Next, you can find all these graphics that are the same exact size, and we're going to distribute them pretty much all the same. So the sun is in the middle, the flamingo's on the left, and the car and the ship are on the right. So just kind of follow that pattern all the way through. Distribute your flamingo. I just love the art, and I have to say, I know it was extremely labor intensive for Jacqueline to colorize it the way she did, but I hope you agree it was worth the immense amount of effort to make all that happen because this just turned out so well. Okay, now the rest of these pieces all go on the inside. And normally I just allow you to dig up like little scraps, but I just included it in the pocket because I know I used it. So on this teal card, we had enjoy, and then the may your whole day shine with joy with it. Then I had a strip, and I had a red piece. Okay, then the next one is the inside says, may your whole day shine with joy again. And I had a little printed piece in there. And maybe I'll go more toward the orange shade. And I also had this little blue. The next one, here comes the sun, happy birthday. I had a printed strip, and I also had a yellow. And then let's put all the rest of these things on the final card. So again, those little pieces were rescued from the scrap bin, and I just incorporated them to make a beautiful inside of my card. And I can take the 3 here, cards 2, 3, and 4. I'm stacking them, setting them aside for later. And now I can just take the whole pile here and flip it over and start attaching things. Okay, so we can right away go ahead and apply adhesive to this nesting panel and add it to our card base, centered as best as you can. If you want to use a ruler to help you with that, you can do that too, of course. Then we have this piece. Since it's a little bit narrower, and it is narrower by design, you didn't mess up, I'm going to take my ruler here and find my 0 center, and then an 1/8 inch up from the bottom edge of the orange panel. Apply some adhesive, and then looks like it's centered at 3 1/4. So it's level and the same amount of reveal on each side. Next, with this panel, I'm going to take some of the ribbon, trim it a little bit wider than the panel. You could also nest 2 different sized ribbons here. You could add a white, because this is narrower than the white, and nest them together. That'd be kind of fun. I always keep my tape in a tabletop dispenser, so it's easy to dispense with one hand while I'm holding the ribbon with another. Okay, flip it back over. You can add your adhesive if you want, and center this. If you wanted to, you could find out what is the center. So first I get my 0 center figured out, and then I figure out where this is going to land. It looks like it's going to be 1 inch. So if I bring this around and I set it here 1 inch up from the orange, that won't be the same because all these strips are different widths. So might be worth it to you to just take a little bit of extra effort to make sure this is nice and level, like laying the foundation of your card. Next, I am going to add this guy pretty close to the strip, and to add him, since he's the same width as my ATG tape, maybe use the narrower stuff. I don't know. I like the wide stuff. So I just use glue for these smaller things. I'm going to eyeball this. I should probably use the ruler, but there you go. That just adds that 4th color, right? Because we have the teal, the orange, the yellow, and the red. For these, you can choose to add your standard adhesive, or you could use foam adhesive as well. Totally up to you. I used foam on my samples, but in the interest of time. And I'm going to find my center again. That's on the yellow. It's 3 1/4, 1/8 of an inch up from the bottom edge. So the center one is the one I'll attach first. That's the one with the sun. I'm going to leave 1/8 of an inch for the right panel, and then 1/8 of an inch for the left panel. Ta-da! Beautiful, right? Now, all of this stuff that we have left is designed for the inside of the card. And I know I just have it all face down, but I know it all gets adhered, so this is a great way to save a little time. Just add all your adhesive. I'm going to start out with the red. And then I'm going to nest it with some print. And then this nice, lovely piece. And then this can go here. How fun is that? Not quite done yet. We got 2 little things we can add. How about one of these gorgeous pancake flat sunburst charms? I glued it on with my bookbinding glue and had the center of the sun of the charm aligned with the center of the sun on the art. Then on the lower corners of those little pieces peeking out, you can add a little sequin that sort of mimics a brad, but yet it adds no weight, no dimension, no problems to the card. And again, you can just do that with a spot of bookbinding glue to hold that down. The reason I'm not gluing that right now is because I'm going to move this and I don't have a place to set it aside right now for it to dry safely. So when it's ready, when you're ready to do all these final things, make sure you're going to walk away and keep the cat out of the room, okay? Because cats just like, I don't know, they sort of know. They know there's wet glue and they go and find it and move it with their paws. Okay, let's take a look at the remaining cards in the set. So that's the one we did together. Here's the finished one. So that ribbon added the little faux brads, but they're really just sequins, and that sun charm's here to stay. I did take a jewelry pliers and I nipped off the hanging loop. But you know, I think these would make fabulous earrings. I say that a lot, but I think they really would. So if you want to pick up an extra set of those, well, we have them. Here I have nested the teal and the red together. This is just white. I could have brought teal into it as well. The insides, all I did was just layer those little elements, and you can see all the pictures in your instructions as well. Wonderful. I know this was a long workshop. Thanks for hanging in there with me. I hope you had fun learning these card structures. And just always remember that this is a valuable thing. I mean, I invest hours and hours of my time, and that's no exaggeration. It's more like days figuring these out so that you have very few scraps and to set you up for a total assembly success. I've got other page kits still in stock from previous months. You can pick those up, sometimes at a savings, so check our clearance area if you want to try more card formulas along with me, especially if you're new. You know, brush up on your measuring and your efficiency skills with me. We're going to be on a wonderful learning journey together if you join me with a membership to our card kit. It's a lot of fun, and I look forward to seeing you for the July collection next month. Enjoy.